So, hello everyone. Long time since last VegTalk. Today I got Joy with me, and we are going to talk about bees and maybe gaming afterwards. See how things goes. So, first of all, who are you? Where do you come from? And why did you go vegan?
Hello, my name is Joy. I am 28 years old right now. I am from the Netherlands. And why I went vegan, very long story, very short. It's I got into a conversation about veal, like baby cows. And it just seemed really cruel to me that, we were actually eating baby cows. So I looked a little bit into it, and somebody actually informed me that they were a byproduct of the dairy industry. And when I heard that, I felt like I somehow already knew that because you know how mammals work, but it never really got through to me. So I decided to opt out of participating in that, and that's kind of how the ball got rolling and how I found out about veganism. And I was like, yeah, that seems like something that aligns with my personal ideas. So
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm just so glad that you didn't say you were from Holland because it just confuses me so many times because oh, you're from Holland, and I was like north or south. And then they like name a different province. No,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but like the thing about the wheel thing is something that I've always known because my grandparents did they did like milk production, but like with the goats. So I sort of knew that they were going to slaughterhouses as well. So, but they aren't eaten; they're just waste.
Yeah, I recently learned that apparently worldwide the most common form of dairy is not from cows but from goats actually.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think it's true. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, like many parts of Western Asia, they use more goat, and also if you go like more into like Middle Eastern part, there is also more camel.
It makes sense because I know about a lot more, like I know a lot about a lot of different cow cheeses, which is very popular in the Netherlands, but there's so many different types of goat cheeses.
Yeah, here as well.
Like you don't really think about that, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, very interesting thing is basically today's topic at hand. Bees is a very interesting little topic because it's the one thing that vegans get the most amount of like, oh, why is this? And to like start off, I think it's better to just start off by insects in general because bees is a little bit more complex. So basically, when a carnist brings up like, oh, what about like they bring up as an argument, like, why would you care about insects? And if it's an honest question, that's fine to answer. But when most of them do that, like, how the heck are you going to convince them about insects when they don't think that cows and pigs and chickens should have the right to life? It's like
Yeah.
you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, that is a very difficult one. A lot of people will also, be very enthused about the whole insect protein thing that is now up and coming. And I think it's a terrible idea, obviously, but lots of people just don't seem to be convinced of, them being sentient beings, even though, in my opinion, science says that they are. Um, if we talk about the entire insect world, it's going to be a bit more complicated because it's huge. I
Yeah.
think people underestimate just how much insects are a part of our ecosystem and just how many different species of insects there are. People would give me wide eyes when I say that there are over 20,000 species of bees alone. Because you don't think about that. You think of honeybees, and that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and that's a real thing. So yeah, my plan wasn't going through the entire insect kingdom, but like the main thought people have around insects, basically.
Yeah.
So one thing that I come across is basically people like, oh, I like many vegans even say that they're agnostic about insects.
Hmm.
So it's like, yeah, I guess is like a curve of like a sentience where it seems as if the average insect is less intelligent than like for example the average mammal, and there are also
Yeah.
some like things there, but it's like this scenario that I was given recently, like if you have a homeless person in a cage, you have a puppy in a cage, and you have an ant in a cage. Like, which one would you like? Which one would you toss into the ocean, or unless somebody would shoot you or something like that? And it's like, I guess most people would pick the ants because like it's mostly likely that that one is the least sentient, but like we are in a situation where we don't have to do either. Kind of,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, people will bring up the hierarchy of sentience, and although I personally, don't find it very relevant whether or not there is a hierarchy in that, like something that we can prove. But the thing is, when you talk about the scenario with the cages, I am fine with people having a personal bias. I have a personal bias. I would save my mother over a stranger, and I would save my mother over, I don't know, a cow or an ant or any other animal. But that personal bias does not justify me unnecessarily harming any of them.
yeah,
And I feel like that's the point that often gets a little bit lost when we talk about a hierarchy of sentience, because I think in the end you're either sentient or you're not. Maybe that's just my Dutch blunt way of approaching that, but
yeah. I recently left a poll on a Norwegian vegan page where it's like, do you value all or like no, I worded it differently. Do you value animals and humans equally, or is it like different and such? And I was surprised by the amount of vegans who actually put all species at like the same level. But I guess it's because people have very different ideas about what intrinsic value is, for example.
yeah, I'd say they're on the same level in the sense that any sentient being deserves moral consideration.
Yeah,
And what that is going to be is going to depend on the specific situation.
yeah. Like I don't even view every single human as having the same worth, but like in a modern day scenario, I don't see why it's relevant to like what we do on a daily day basis. But I can sure answer those questions in like a philosophical discussion, for example. Yeah. So that is like a topic that seemed to be like very difficult, but I guess this is a very interesting thing to like talk more about, like where most people see if a colonist talks about humans having more worth, it's like I think we should accept that type of idea that they bring forward because, well, at least I understand what they mean. But trying to say that, well, I can understand if you believe some other species has less worth, but don't you think that they have at least enough to not being like murdered, tortured, and killed, like that type of mentality? Because I feel like many people get put off by vegans because of that type of. Or what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a stereotype, the stereotypical hippie vegan that sees all of the planet is in sync and we're all just the same animal and stuff. I think it's fine to disagree with that. I think from both perspectives, none of it justifies harming animals, in my opinion. But that's just me.
Yeah, because I know some carnists who bring up the argument that they also believe that all animals are the same, and then they end up like, yeah, I would kill humans if that was legal and there wouldn't be any other consequences, type of thing.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I can't speak for these people, of course, I can't relate to that sentiment, but I feel like a lot of people just trying to be edgy about that kind of thing. Like, yeah, obviously, humans are just animals as well. But I don't think there's anything weird about valuing humans over other species in, like the personal bias, what we just talked about.
And also, sometimes when I run Name the Trait, people actually end up there because they try to be consistent. And that is literally hilarious.
Same with the Yulin Dog Festival. Lots of people will, be against that, understandably so. But then they will kind of be like, yeah, well, if you start talking about cows and pigs, they'll kind of change their mind about it. And you've accidentally convinced someone that eating dogs is okay instead of saying that none of them is okay.
Yeah. So
that's a bit of a trap.
Yeah, exactly. So in the sense of bees, is that they are quite like remarkable in the insect world. You'd agree to that. So where would you say that bees really stick out in like in their like basic differences between like other insects?
I think for now it's mainly their environmental impacts, because we've got a ton of different pollinators, right? There are so many different pollinators that keep plant life going, and that keep mammals going, that, they're a very important link in our ecosystem. Now, what we've done, and what I think makes bees remarkable at the moment, is we have taken one species of bee, the honeybee, the Apis mellifera, most commonly used in the honey industry and in the pollination industry. And we have kind of bred them to a point where we have caused an imbalance, because there are so many of one specific species of bee. We've essentially given them superpowers, right? We feed them, we keep them safe, we treat their diseases for as far as we, possibly can, for as far as is beneficial to us. And that really throws the ecosystem out of whack, because a lot of insects are also territorial, so are honeybees, and they will essentially drive out other species, which affects the plant populations, which affects the mammal populations, which affects etc.
Yeah. So all over the news in Norway, it's never explained, but like they keep bringing up that the bumblebees are threatened. And the thing is, they don't bring up the main thing. It's basically that it's because they're competing with the commercial honeybees. And that is like, why don't they bring that up?
and it's not even just the competition, like the competition for pollen. It's also that when we use honeybees for pollination, we what often happens is we put them on a big truck, a bunch of colonies together.
Well, I say, wait. When you said competition for pollen, you mean competition for nectar?
Both pollen and nectar.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we do when we what often happens during the pollination process by humans is we take a bunch of colonies, and people will rent out their bee colonies. So they'll put on a big truck, and as we've learned during the pandemic, putting a whole huge population of a species together is not very good if you're trying to prevent the spread of diseases, parasites, fungi, all of that. So not only will they cross-contaminate, they will also, once released, release all of those diseases onto the wildlife, the local wildlife, which again, can harm, for example, bumblebee populations, because they will get those diseases as well, and they will get those parasites and all of that. So that is another factor that contributes to different bee species going extinct.
Yeah, exactly. And it isn't only bee species. They all also compete with like other pollinators.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're like, I don't remember all the species and stuff, but there was this huge thing that was brought up for a few years ago, where they said, oh, the bees are so important, so the beekeepers are their heroes. And there were even like, I don't remember which vegan doctor it was that also said like, God bless those beekeepers or so. Like that myth was like, it brought into like, even a vegan doctor were like saying like, I've been back and forth on this, but he thought for some reason that beekeeping was a good thing.
Yeah, and it's an understandable misconception, really. I was convinced of this for years, that it's good to, breed more bees, so we have more bees. Makes sense, right? But then you look a little bit closer and you see that that's a myth, like you say.
Yeah. And on the ethical side of things, that's also something that people don't also realize. So that is one thing, like going to a carnist and trying to convince them about bees when they're not convinced about cows, for example. It's like a dead cause. But an easy way that I explain it is that a teaspoon of honey is a bee's life's work. That is one thing that I try to bring up. And like, what is your approach when people have like an issue with like understanding like?
Yeah, if we really look at the topic of do bees feel pain, and can I convince you whether or not they feel pain? I made a whole video about this, by the way, if you can just shamelessly promote my own stuff.
Yeah.
It's called Do Bees Feel Pain? And I go a lot deeper into the subject here. But basically, what I try to show is that it's been scientifically shown that these bees emote, that they express cognitive bias. So they have their own experiences and apply their knowledge of that experience onto their behavior. And, for example, there was an experiment where you can see stressed out bees retract from a potential food source because they have this they're more pessimistic, quote unquote, than bees that are not stressed. So, man, I'm trying to remember the name of the doctor that researched that, but I can't quite think of it right now. Um, but basically what he did is he showed that bees emote and show emotions, and that they also have this evolutionary precursor, this use for the experience of pain, just like humans do. I mean, the reason why we feel pain is because it's been to our evolutionary benefit, and I think the same applies to bees.
Yeah, that's a really good point to bring forward. It's basically because many people are not convinced that any insects feel pain, but it's just so clear. Like they avoid pain, but some people make the argument that, oh, that's just instinctual. But I'm not. It's just very weird in that sense. But
I mean, if you talk about nociception, sure, that's instinctual and
yeah,
it doesn't mean the experience of pain, but it can be an indicator for it. Because why bother with nociception if you cannot feel pain?
exactly. And and I don't remember, but I saw some video on like bees communication, where they like through dancing could like even explain like how far away a food source was and such. Do you know more about that?
Oh man, that is fascinating. You've got so many different things when it comes to bee communication. I recently read this really fascinating example of cuckoo bees. Are you familiar with like how cuckoo birds put their eggs into a nest of a host, and basically the host comes,
Yeah,
you know, to raise their young? Cuckoo bees kind of work in the same way, but they do not communicate as much with words, obviously, as humans do. They have developed different means of communications, like scents and pheromones and all of that. And I think that the cuckoo bee is an excellent example of this, because what happens is the male emulates the scent of a host's nest, and that attracts the female. So the female comes over, they mate, and the male rubs on that pheromone, not only to deter her from other males, to make her less attractive towards other males, but also as a form of camouflage, so she can fly into the host hive unnoticed and lay her eggs there and just make her escape.
wow.
It's and bumblebees are another example. They do a little bee dance. It's absolutely adorable. You should definitely look that up if you ever just have a bad day.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, there's so many different facets of that. How bees communicate and how bees actually have these societal structures. Sometimes, if you talk about colony bees, because you got solitary bees as well, but they communicate as well in fascinating ways.
yeah. It's almost like scary. So like when you have an insect and they show so many like signs of high intelligence. That is something that surprised me about bees, and I haven't seen a situation of bees, but we have someone of their close relatives, the ants, because there are ants who have passed the mirror test even.
Yeah.
So that was like so incredible, and
Yeah, it's mind blowing how intelligent they can be, and also, to me, it's always fascinating to see different ways of communication, because we're used to human communication and researching that, and it's obviously fascinating as well. But if you look at how much is possible, it makes me kind of wonder how humans communicate in ways that we just don't even notice anymore.
yeah, yeah, and I saw something about that when it came to like how men act in a bar compared to how women act in a bar, and many would say that men take the first move, but it's actually the women taking the first move by body language. That is something that they saw. That was quite interesting because it was like with looks and like the way they did the hair and such. That was like interesting.
Yeah, okay. So you're saying that women like invite the
Yeah,
men in that sense, yeah.
yeah, like get their look and like do some kind of gesture or something that like, and then the men like, wow, I'm going to take the first move when like she did the first move. So yeah, there's some behavior that is like very interesting in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you see a lot of similar behavior in bees, like especially
Yeah.
with mating rituals and stuff. It can be super fascinating.
Yeah, and like I'm not sure if this applies for bees as well, but I saw is it called Antopia or something? Antiverse? No, Ant Canada is it? It's a channel that do like these ant colonies in in like different videos. So he has like different type of breeds in different colonies, and he does like some experiments with like polygynous type of bee. What running out of time? It says.
Remaining meeting time 10 minutes. But you can just restart the meeting, I think.
Yeah, I guess. Should I
Zoom
just?
has a limit if you don't have if you didn't purchase the.
Yeah, but it
the-
was supposed to run forever if it was only 2 people, wasn't it? Strange.
I
Okay.
don't know. Either way, we can just restart the meeting. That's
How should I just click end and then start again?
yeah. You can either wait until the timer runs out, or you can just start the meeting again.
Okay, I'll do that. Well, yeah, that was interesting. Now, yeah. So what I was about to say is that in this ants Canada type of thing, where he has like this ant colonies and stuff, he has done some experiments where he basically tried to put polygynous ant colonies together and see how they interact. And one time there was 2 queen bees that was going to be introduced to this other colony. One of them they were just so kind to and just let it in, and the other one seemed as if they were attacking the queen, and they weren't really.
Do you mean queen ant?
Yeah.
Or queen bee?
The queen ant.
Oh, the queen ant. Okay.
Yeah, and it was like they were attacking the queen ant, but not in the way that they were going to kill this queen, but to enslave the queen to be like an A layer. And I'm not sure if that happens with bees as well, but it was just a very interesting little thing.
Okay, I don't know how exactly that happens. For as far as I know, bees are quite territorial,
Yeah.
but it is entirely possible that different colonies have different cultures,
Yeah.
which is actually quite fascinating to think about. Because I know that I've heard similar stories about ant colonies. Now that you've mentioned it, it also kind of reminds me of how cows moo with an accent. That's
Yeah.
always been hilarious to me. But I just thought of that.
Yeah, because I found it very interesting, like in the way that they kind of do their communication in that side. No, not the communication, but their like behavior is like different towards 2 different queens. Although those 2 queens were already from like the same like colony. It's just very weird. Like, was there like some opposition from one of the queens, or was it like this is some like questions that we don't really understand. But I don't know if there are monogamous and polygynous differences in queens as well. Do you know that?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Okay. Can like a beehive have 2 queens?
Oh man. Technically speaking, when you talk about solitary bees, all of the female bees are queens. So in that sense, yes. But in a hive structure, I don't know if that would work.
No.
I've never heard about several queens in one hive.
No.
So I have to be honest, I just don't know if that's possible.
No. No, because I know it's different between ant species, but I didn't know if it was different between like bee species. Because
Perhaps if you're dealing with like, I'm trying to think of scenarios where that may work. I'm thinking maybe in a huge colony, like where you have like an absolutely massive hive. Maybe I don't know. I think it would be difficult with the ways how pheromones work in bees.
Yeah, and also their reproductive functioning is very different to it is in most other species.
Yes.
And to bring it back to ants again, because ant queens can actually give birth to males only if they're not impregnated, which is quite interesting.
Really? Oh, that's unique, I believe, because I believe with bees, for as far as I know, this happens with honeybees, but the queen has this virgin flight. There's a specific term for it, but it slipped my mind for a second. But they will only have males for a very limited amount of time.
Okay.
They will literally only have males just to use for breeding purposes. And the queen will have her little mating flight at the beginning of her career, I guess. And a lot of male bees die. I believe it's like 1 in 6 die because they, warning, I guess, they get disemboweled by their penis because it gets stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
That happens a lot. And even afterwards, bees are ejected from the hive because they're just not very useful. They don't pollinate as well. They don't help take care of the offspring. They can't sting. They don't defend the hive as well. They're really only there for reproductive purposes, and for the rest of the hive, it's all female workers, drones, and a queen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's sorry, I forgot the point that I was going to make. But the queen basically she collects the semen and uses it only to when necessary, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like a really like dark side of like their kind of like from like a human perspective. That would be like quite dark, wouldn't it?
I know with stick bugs it kind of works. I have stick bugs myself, and they're fascinating little creatures. Everybody always makes fun of me, but I love them. They can reproduce without mating, as many insects can, but they will only produce the female version of them. You have some type of androgynous youngs that can emerge under very specific circumstances, but functionally, reproductively, they're female.
Yeah.
And they can just reproduce on their own without the help of a male, and they will essentially produce clones of themselves.
Yeah, it's called asexual reproduction. That's that's the term basically.
There's like there was another specific term for it, but it's just I'm so bad at remembering those specific terms. I just remember how it works,
Yeah, and I might even be wrong because there might be like a specific term for this type of reproduction that isn't really called asexual reproduction, but I don't know.
Yeah, it was something else, but I forgot.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, the biggest thing that I'd say in this type of debate is that it's a bigger thing because the most opposition the most common argument I hear from farmers, but not only farmers, but they use this argument a lot, that we need animal agriculture for keeping the cultural landscape open to keep the biodiversity. And that is a big thing when they come with this argument with beekeeping as well.
Yeah, well, I'd say that it's very important to, try and maintain biodiversity. I don't think that animal agriculture is necessarily the best way to go about that. Well, sure, it has some aspect in which it contributes to it. I think it's just a huge loop around, instead of taking the straightforward way.
Yeah, and I feel like beekeepers and farmers have they are like on board with this because they believe that the cultural landscape is necessary for the ecosystem to function, which I just find to be total nonsense.
Mm-hmm. It's ecosystems are a very complicated issue. Obviously, I think that humans at the very least would benefit from some human intervention in what the landscape looks like. Again, I just don't think we specifically need animal agriculture in order to achieve that, and I don't believe that to be the most effective way to go about it.
No, and to like make a last point on that one, there is other necessary type of interventions in nature that we do. For example, lumber is one thing. And the thing is, I walked down this cultural trail, and there was this sign saying that, this type of environmental act that we did by leaving those little stumps of trees up, and I was just thinking, I know that we need those resources, but can they please don't call it like environmental acts?
Yeah, it's often like kind of going about what was the saying? You do the wrong thing in the right way. There's no right way to do the wrong thing. But I understand when it comes to maintaining ecosystems in terms of trees. Sometimes they cut down a huge tree because it has like a fungus or a disease, or because it overshadows all the other plants, and that actually negatively affects biodiversity. I get that there are scenarios like that, but it hardly ever overlaps with the actual the lumber industry, for example.
Yeah. So yeah,
I can feel the same way about hunting. It's like, yeah, sure, there may be factors here that improve the environment, but why aren't we going about that in a more efficient way? Because essentially we're just maintaining the hunting industry by maintaining an imbalance in the ecosystem rather than trying to deal with it in a appropriate way. And why are we leaving it up to an industry that profits off imbalance rather than an industry that's actually looking for a solution for the problem, a more permanent solution.
Yeah, and basically they're not having those bees for the purposes of keeping the cultural landscape open. It's for profit basically, and I see the same thing in hunting, whereas they don't hunt because they want like the population to be better or no, it's basically to sell enough hunting licenses, and then there's also people who want to hunt. And if in some scenarios it's necessary to keep a population down, they will only hunt the young and the best off individuals, and that's horrible in a genetic sense.
My question, I think it's always interesting to ask, would you still be hunting if it didn't have a proven benefit to the environment? And would you still be keeping bees if it turns out it was bad for the environment?
Yeah,
Just or neutral.
yeah,
Really look down at the motivation for people. And it's the same way with cows. If we really do this out of appreciation for the animal and wanting to keep this animal alive, then why do we have these amalgamations of sorry, my English has just gone out the window.
That's fine.
Why do we have these genetically modified animals that are nothing like what a healthy type of cow should look like?
Yeah.
For example.
Well, I can answer this because there are some times where I accept that hunting was necessary. There was in Azerbaijan, there was a pack of wolves that got rabies. I understand why they had to kill the entire pack. It's like, yeah, I understand the situation, and I would accept the same thing in the human context. If there was a bunch of maniac humans out there who you couldn't communicate with, there wasn't a practical way to fix their disease or whatever, I guess getting the military out there and exterminating them would be like an equal type of manner. It's like a whole horrible way of thinking, but like I can't think of like another better way of dealing with like the kind of type of situation.
Yeah, of course, but then you get the military involved, like professionals who are specifically aimed at, the problem, and not necessarily someone who does it for a hobby with an entire industry behind it. That's,
Yeah, so it's the
I
same.
totally get that.
Yeah, it's the same thing in Azerbaijan as well, where they had to kill that pack. How the rabies got there, we have no idea. But like, it's like we could have stopped the pandemic if they just shot individual bats with the virus, for example. But like, we can't track that type of thing. But with rabies, that was actually
That would not be a
trackable.
very efficient way of stopping COVID. No.
No, it wouldn't. No. Yeah. So yeah, that was yeah. Is there more points about bees you want to bring up?
Oh man, I'm just I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Let's see. We talked a little bit about the environmentalist aspects, and we talked a little bit about one thing that might be a little bit interesting to talk about is potential alternatives. And this is a topic that I'm still looking into, so I'm by no means an expert on this, but it's just absolutely fascinating to learn about how we can go about agriculture without using bees, at least using bees in the way that we are doing now. Because of course I would prefer to not involve animals whatsoever and make as least of an impact and not use animals. But I understand that there may be some stepping stones to that. I understand that there are some types of bees, for example solitary bees, that we can use to pollinate without affecting their natural lifespan all that much. We just would not get honey out of the process, but we may be able to, go about that and actually do something good for their populations.
And some people do that.
I've already heard about, one of the main problems with that would be that honeybees breed very quickly. You can get a lot of honeybees in a short amount of time, and they have an area. They cover an area of about 10 kilometers, and that's fairly big because solitary bees only do like a few hundred meters, which would allow us to, in a very controlled way, get them to pollinate the plants that we want them to without interfering with much of the wildlife. So I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. And of course, you got self-pollinating plants, and you've got like done by hand by humans or by plane. There's a lot of trouble with that as well. But
in China, so some places they have killed off all the pollinators. So there are basically people going around and pollinating.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I think I've seen footage of that, of people actually pollinating, but I didn't know that they actually killed off all pollinators.
No, well,
Oh,
basically
man.
all pollinators who could pollinate those crops, for example. But there was also like some wild plants and stuff that has gone, well, not extinct necessarily, but from that area. It's like a horrible thing. And if you see like the massive amount of things that have been done in China, well, the main reason why many things are happening in China is because it's so large. So just keep that in mind. That, like, there are places in China that isn't that bad off, basically, just to make that clear. But yeah, humans are actually better off pollinating. You get like better yieldings and stuff from it. But I guess like on long term, I guess rewilding is a very good option.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
I would say so.
yeah, and then like you could like rewild like flies that killed off and just stop using those dangerous chemicals in the environment. That would be, I guess that is the best solution, but I'm no expert in this field.
I suppose an excellent example of this would be America, because I believe I had a video talking about this topic, but basically what happened is there were no Apis mellifera because it's the European honeybee,
Yeah.
and nature was fine. You know, the plant life was thriving just fine. And specifically for honey, colonizers brought honeybees with them in order to pollinate. So it's not like we absolutely need those honeybees. We were doing Americans were doing fine without them there.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a good example of why we don't necessarily need honeybees specifically.
Yeah. Also in Norway, where because it's so far north, they're not native here, so they couldn't
Yeah.
survive here without beekeeping. So it's just, yeah,
They're
it's just
essentially an
bizarre.
invasive species,
Yeah.
so it's even more damaging to the environment.
Yeah, so that's also something I bring up to the farmers when they say that, oh, we need those cows to keep the grassland open. It's like, it's an invasive species. It's like,
I mean, at this point, we've bred them into these, you know, weird-looking aliens that it
Yeah,
could be
exactly.
an invasive species anywhere. Fair enough.
yeah. I don't know if we like rewilded them in those parts of Asia where they used to be, if they would actually function as they did originally. I don't know.
I think we'd really have to focus on how we go about breeding animals, because of course we'd have to, you know, reduce it first off way back,
Yeah.
and then focus on what is actually healthy for the animal in order for them to thrive and in order for them to evolve in a healthy. Oh
Oh,
God!
what happened?
I just threw glass all over myself. Look at that.
Oh, jeez. Shall we pause?
Okay, hold on one second. I think I'm okay.
Okay.
I think I just need to shake it off. Why do I have a
My.
wine glass here?
Because you drank wine?
I don't even drink.
uh,
I don't think I even drank wine in it.
oh, wow.
Oh well. I'm fine. I'm good.
Fine?
I just
Okay.
need to get the vacuum cleaner out later.
Jeez. That's the first time that happened on on record.
Of course. Yeah, my desk is a bit of a mess at the moment. I had quite the busy week. I had to do an get a certificate for my new job, so I had to study.
Oh, okay.
I made it though. Very happy
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Is it a good transition now for like next topic?
I suppose, yeah. Better transition than any.
Yeah, the glass did it. Break the glass.
Muzzle tov.
Yeah. So basically, I don't know where to start here, because we talked about like gaming and like the one thing that I think of is like often I think about this is like making like vegan versions of like playing a game, for example. And I did this with Zelda
Right.
Breath of the Wild, and that went actually well. Have you had any similar thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, your videos kind of inspired me to look into that, to be honest. And I also saw that, you know, this game, The Forest, probably, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but yeah.
And there's a vegan challenge in that as well. And
Oh,
I've
wow.
honestly considered doing that, but it seems difficult in that one.
Oh.
Honestly, because of how all the mechanics work. But there's a trophy for it, like an official trophy, so it should be doable.
Yeah, because I know some games is like impossible, and people are like, can you do a Pokemon vegan challenge? How the heck are you doing that? You're basically capturing animals and having them fight each other. How do you do that vegan?
Yeah, right. That would be one hell of a challenge.
Yeah, it's like, how the heck are you going to do that? And you could probably get your way to think around it, because people bring up like the point about in X and Y, the illegal gang was like an ALF type of group, but they still used they still used Pokemon to fight for them. So that was interesting. But I'm thinking of Minecraft, but I'm not like, that might seem very difficult.
I don't know. I've seen people do speedruns of that, and I don't know. Like it kind of depends on what you consider to be vegan in that context, because do you mean like the peaceful mobs, or do you also mean like hostile mobs like Enderman? Like,
Yeah.
would killing an Enderman be considered vegan or not?
Yeah, and the thing is, I guess if we have sort of like monsters around, it's difficult, specifically with Endermen. But it's like, if they're hostile, they're hostile. You're allowed to defend yourself. But are you allowed to make like a Enderman farm type of?
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess technically it would be possible because you can find ender pearls, but then again, you would need, I believe you need some specific item from the Nether in order to get the what's it called? Eye of Ender, or for in
Yeah,
the
Eye of Ender,
so
yeah.
you can make the portal to the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the Eye of Ender.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
I don't know.
no,
I guess it's possible because I've seen people. I believe I've seen people do that, but I don't exactly know how. And then again, are you allowed to use monster products at all? That's yet
Yeah.
another thing.
yeah. Usually, what I've thought is that, okay, there will be animal products dropping off and stuff, and I don't see any problem. But consuming it will be a little too far, I guess. But like I've trained on doing so I made like a mob farm, and then it's like, oh, there's a chicken in there. I have to how am I going to get this chicken out? It's just it was just really
Yeah, exactly. You're talking about consuming, but how is that much different from using it for a portal? And then you get that whole ethical dilemma,
Yeah. Well, it's more like yeah, it's weird because in my Zelda Breath of the Wild challenge, I was allowed to use bone material fighting equipment if I just picked it up, used it there and then, and tossed it away. But I couldn't like walk around with it, type of thing. Because like
Right.
yeah, because that's something we would accept as vegans. It's like, yeah, one thing is to like use something that you find there and then, but to like promote it in a way to walk around with it is something totally different. Uh,
Yeah, I guess.
and
Like
also,
if it's to save your life,
yeah.
in terms of a video game, how does it count as saving your life?
Yeah, I guess that I go about how I would do it in real life, basically. It's like, okay, I found this leather coat. There is fake leather out there. People can't tell if it's real or not. And there was fake leather in the Middle Ages as well. They made it out of
Yeah.
rubber and stuff. So you can get away with that. But if there's bones on the thing, then it's like, no, there wasn't fake bones back then. Then it would be ivory, and that wouldn't be any better.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so today we got like multiple like bone replaces, but yeah, that would be mostly
You
like
can make a pretty convincing looking bone, which sounds like a very weird sentence to say, but
yeah, and this is something that's uncomfortable in real life. It's basically sometimes they have vegan sausages at kiosks and such here, but I buy them and I walk around and eating it, and it's like, am I now promoting meat because it looks like meat?
it does feel weird, doesn't it? 'Cause
Yeah.
I was at I went to a theme park yesterday with some of my friends, and afterwards we went to McDonald's. Now I try to avoid McDonald's, but I just ordered the fries and had a Coke and stuff, vegan items. And I happen to know that in my country, I believe that McDonald's always use plant oil instead of animal
Yeah.
oil. That was not a vegan decision or a welfare decision. That was basically just for, I believe they're required by law now to do it because of the machinery and because of the grease content and all of
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I know that that's relatively safe to do. But then it did feel a little bit weird to me. And also, some people say that Oreos aren't vegan because people say that, yeah, right, I got one right here.
Yeah, I avoid it because of palm oil.
Yeah, palm oil. That's another one. It turns out to me that palm oil, and I also like to try and avoid almonds because of bees.
Yeah.
That is a lot more difficult to avoid than going vegan. 100%.
Yeah. Well, Norway has gotten very, very aware of like palm oil. Very much so. So if you go into a regular grocery store, I'm not sure if you can find noodles that contains palm oil now.
Oh, that would be so great.
Yeah,
I don't
we've
think
gotten-
the Netherlands is that into it.
We've gotten that far, and there is one branch, the Rema 1000 store. It's I guess it's second most popular store in Norway. They've banned palm oil unless it's an import.
Okay.
So yeah, they got Oreos, but like if it's a local produce, they decide they're not going to have it, and that happened years ago now.
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so Norway is so far beyond on like the palm oil stuff.
That would be so much nicer to, just be able to shop and not have to check for that. Because I already, make sure to check for the vegan stuff. And I'm pretty adamant about that. But you're not always going to be able to, I think it's very hard to avoid stuff like that in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wonder how we do that in a video game type of setting.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I would care about like palm oil in like a video game setting.
Yeah, because, it's not, you don't have to worry about the environmental impact of it because...
No, and I have been thinking of like how can I like think of like a video game where this is possible, because I haven't played many video games the last years. I just don't feel I have the time anymore, really. but it's really interesting to think like what other games can be done vegan, because there's many video games out there that it's not possible whatsoever. But I was so impressed with like Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I'm thinking of just buying the next game and just start doing the same without researching things. I think that would be really interesting.
That would make for an interesting challenge, I think.
Because it was
that would be a fun game to stream, I think.
yeah,
Maybe.
because I did it without streaming on the first one, but then I like accepted more things. Like I sold animal products and stuff, and I didn't do that in my challenge. So
Right.
and what's so frustrating is that if it's pre-cooked or if it's like an elixir or something, you can't toss it away. That's like a spot in the inventory that's like, what am I going to do now? And if it's the same thing in the next game, then it's like, wow. Then you really need to like look at what you have, An easy way that I did things when I was training for it was that I filled up my inventory.
Yeah, that's probably a good strategy because you're right. You can't just throw it away.
Yeah. So that's
You may accidentally end up using it. Like you automatically use stuff like fairies and such.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is like a really big thing, really. And many people have also asked me, and that's like a side topic. It's like they ask me if playing Pokemon is vegan, and it's like,
Right.
yeah, because should we draw the line there? It's like, yeah, well, is it humanistic to play Counter-Strike, for example, because you're shooting humans?
I draw. For me, that answer is very simple. I draw the line at sentience, and we're not at the point yet where video game characters are sentient. So
Yeah,
I
exactly, yeah.
really don't have a problem with milking a cow in Minecraft.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
don't get why people care about those kind of nuances. I mean, you understand the difference between reality and video games. The moment that starts to blur, you have a whole different set of issues.
Yeah, well, I only play Minecraft vegan. That is something for me. Well, as far as I do, and I don't know why I like keep that type of ethics in Minecraft.
I guess it's. I feel kind of the same way. Like I try to do the same with The Sims, and I noticed that I just kind of automatically choose for a plant-based option because you can do that now instead of like the meat option.
Oh, really?
And I don't know why, but I guess it's become personal preferences, and I've become a little bit, you develop a little bit of an aversion for animal products. Like, for example, I think eggs stink. I cannot stand the smell of eggs. So even the idea of like cooking eggs is just kind of ugh to me.
Yeah. Well,
So I guess that's why that
yeah.
translates.
Well, I got some really convincing egg replacement places, but I'd like, would that be the same? Like it's like stinks.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I would. I've always said, I would be totally fine with eating meat at a restaurant if it was like 3D printed and actually vegan and stuff like that. Probably
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that, but I don't know if I would honestly like it at this point.
What was interesting is that many people said that were disgusted by the Beyond Meat running out of time in 10 minutes time again.
Oh, that's great. That hasn't been an hour yet, has it?
No, that's weird.
Oh well.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
They were disgusted by Beyond Meat because.
Yeah, because it was so similar. But I was like, well, I wasn't disgusted by it, but I felt as if it was very like it wasn't good anymore. Like it wasn't bad, but it was like I've tasted so many better alternatives. If you see what I mean.
Yeah. Like the other day, I had a vegan lasagna,
Yeah.
and honestly, I got a little suspicious. Like, is this actually vegan?
Yeah.
And it was. Like, I checked, and it absolutely was. But I don't know why. It just feels weird sometimes.
Yeah.
And I can get over it. I ate the thing just fine, but
Yeah. Yeah, because we're running low on time and I'm not going to reset it one more time, that's too much. Is it something more you want to bring up?
not something I can think of right now, I guess.
No, okay, I got you. Yeah, I guess that is to wrap that one up. Yeah, it's two very like can be very limiting topics that we brought up now, but yeah, if you have something that you want to promote your channel or whatever, then you have the time to do that now.
Yeah. I guess one last thing that I want to mention is I am glad that there's more awareness. I feel like bees are being more discussed about now today than they were a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. It's even in Earthling Ed's book. I was very happy to read that. The little section about bees. That was fantastic. What I do is I have a YouTube channel called Level Joy. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter. I'm on TikTok as well, even. My boomer ass is on TikTok. All under Level Joy as well. So you can probably find that in a link down in the description somewhere. I talk a lot about bees. I talk about veganism. And I also love to play the occasional video game. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so yeah, that's great to have you on, Dankville. And maybe we can do this some other time.
Absolutely. We should game together sometime.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see about that. That will be interesting. Okay, see ya.
See ya.